Good morning everybody. I'm going to start with some Mod Podge and a clipboard that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to use my 1-inch brush and just give it a good coat of Mod Podge all over. I am using a fairly thin coat. Smoothing that out good. Now I have a piece of craft paper that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. It was in one of those books of scrap paper, or scrapbooking paper rather, and I cut it to fit the clipboard. And I'm laying that down on top of the Mod Podge and smoothing it out, and then going over it with my iron that is set to high heat. And this will dry the Mod Podge, and it also will keep it from having bubbles. I'm just going to smooth that out really well, make sure the whole thing adheres. Get those edges really good. Now I've got these little cards. They're actually postcards that I printed off of an Etsy shop, and I'm cutting those out. I'm going to decoupage those on top of this clipboard using Mod Podge. And I did go ahead and tear the edges, and I used the same technique to put those on the clipboard as I used before with the iron. And then I used my brown chalk paint in the color Java by Folk Art and distressed the edges. Then I gave the whole thing another good hit with the iron just to work out any bubbles there may be. I did put parchment paper on top of the images before I ironed it. Now I'm taking that same Java chalk paint and I'm giving it a pretty good coat around the clip part. I didn't think the silver looked very good. It didn't go with the rest of this project, so I'm hitting that with my chalk paint. Just a good thick layer with a stiff bristled brush. And then I'm going to take some cinnamon. This also came from the Dollar Tree. It's not the good kind. And I'm moving it over in front of my trash can and sprinkling it all over the cinnamon onto that wet paint, so that I can shake it off in the trash can. That'll give it a good rusted look. Now while we lay that over to dry, I'm going to get my Bodabra, and I'm cutting a length of this cute ribbon. It's very Americana, and I'm going to tie that around the bottom, or put that around the bottom rather, and glue it to the back of the clipboard later. And I'm tearing some strips of the same ribbon, a little bit of ticking. I'm cutting into 1/4-inch strips about 6 inches long. I'm also using some jute, and then I've got this red and blue plaid. I'm also going to rip into about 4 1/4-inch strips. They're also about 6 inches long. I'm going to use a piece of jute in the bottom of my Bodabra, and I'm just going to start layering that ribbon on. I decided to make it smaller, so I cut all of those ribbons in half, and they're about 3 inches. And I'm just going to go ahead and layer those one color at a time in an X pattern in my Bodabra. Some of them are a little bit longer, but I like that look. I think it gives it a good texture. I'm also throwing in there some pieces of the jute. Continue layering that ribbon. And then once I get all of the colors layered, I'm going to take the 2 ends of the jute, and I'm going to pull those up and tie it together. Now once I pull this out of the Bodabra, I'm going to tie it in a good hard knot. And then I'll just trim up some of the pieces that were a little bit too long and just kind of fan it out. It almost ended up looking like a little pom-pom bow. It's a pretty cute ribbon, pretty cute bow. Now I'm going to get my clipboard back. The cinnamon is dry, and I'm just going to hot glue this ribbon around the bottom, putting the hot glue on the back. And then I'll flip that back over, and I'm going to use some hot glue up in the top corner and attach my little bow. And then I made this rosette last night, and I decided to stick that in the center of the ribbon at the bottom. And I love the way it turned out. I think it's very rustic, very Americana, very vintage, all the things that I love. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you.